Welcome back to the course When it is useful to use creativity methods in the teaching. Here, I would like to emphasize three main skills for successful learning. Of course, there are a lot more of them, but these are the most important and related to our topic. So they are critical thinking, problem solving skills, and collaboration skills. Albert Einstein said that education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think, and this is what we call critical thinking. There are different definitions of critical thinking. Critical thinking is a capacity to work with complex ideas whereby a person can make effective provision of evidence to justify a reasonable judgment. The evidence and therefore the judgment will pay appropriate attention to context. Or, critical thinking is a reflective and reasonable thought process embodying depth, accuracy, and astute judgment to determine a merit of a decision, an object, or a theory. But the idea is the same. Being able to think for yourself is a key skill at a time where the concept of career and the workplace is changing. Critical thinking is clearly self-directed and self-disciplined. So you will need to be able to think for yourself in a realistic and meaningful way. To be able to think critically, you need to develop critical thinking skills. The more you practice, the better you get. You learn to think critically and get better at it when you practice thinking critically. You cannot think critically about things that you know little about. You cannot solve problems if you do not know enough to be able to figure out what solution is called for. Here are provided 5 tips to improve your critical thinking.
Every day, a sea of decisions stretches before us. Some are small and unimportant, but others have a larger impact on our lives. For example, which politician should I vote for? Should I try the latest diet craze? Or will email make me a millionaire? We're bombarded with so many decisions that it's impossible to make a perfect choice every time. But there are many ways to improve our chances, and one particularly effective technique is critical thinking. This is a way of approaching a question that allows us to carefully deconstruct a situation, reveal its hidden issues, such as bias and manipulation, and make the best decision. If the critical part sounds negative, that's because, in a way, it is. Rather than choosing an answer because it feels right, a person who uses critical thinking subjects all available options to scrutiny and skepticism. Using the tools at their disposal, they'll eliminate everything but the most useful and reliable information. There are many different ways of approaching critical thinking, but here's one 5-step process that may help you solve any number of problems. 1. Formulate your question. In other words, know what you're looking for. This isn't always as straightforward as it sounds. For example, if you're deciding whether to try out the newest diet craze, your reasons for doing so may be obscured by other factors, like claims that you'll see results in just 2 weeks. But if you approach the situation with a clear view of what you're actually trying to accomplish by dieting, whether that's weight loss, better nutrition, or having more energy, that'll equip you to sift through this information critically, find what you're looking for, and decide whether the new fad really suits your needs. 2. Gather your information. There's lots of it out there, so having a clear idea of your question will help you determine what's relevant. If you're trying to decide on a diet to improve your nutrition, you may ask an expert for their advice or seek other people's testimonies. Information gathering helps you weigh different options, moving you closer to a decision that meets your goal. 3. Apply the information, something you do by asking critical questions. Facing a decision, ask yourself, what concepts are at work? What assumptions exist? is my interpretation of the information logically sound? For example, in an email that promises you millions, you should consider, what is shaping my approach to this situation? Do I assume the sender is telling the truth? Based on the evidence, is it logical to assume I'll win any money? 4. Consider the implications. Imagine it's election time, and you've selected a political candidate based on their promise to make it cheaper for drivers to fill up on gas. At first glance, that seems great, but what about the long-term environmental effects? If gasoline use is less restricted by cost, this could also cause a huge surge in air pollution, an unintended consequence that's important to think about. 5. Explore other points of view. Ask yourself why so many people are drawn to the policies of the opposing political candidate. Even if you disagree with everything that candidate says, exploring the full spectrum of viewpoints might explain why some policies that don't seem valid to you appeal to others. This will allow you to explore alternatives, evaluate your own choices, and ultimately help you make more informed decisions. This 5-step process is just one tool, and it certainly won't eradicate difficult decisions from our lives, but it can help us increase the number of positive choices we make. Critical thinking can give us the tools to sift through a sea of information and find what we're looking for. And if enough of us use it, it has the power to make the world a more reasonable place.
Now watch this video and try to evaluate critically. Answer the questions. What did you enjoy most? What did you enjoy least? Was there a message or moral to the story? Did the story engage my emotions? How did it leave me feeling? What discussion this video is causing me? How did this compare to stories of a similar nature? Do I feel the authors achieving their goals?
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual
Toxic
harassment.
masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie.
Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool, not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men, we're acting like we gonna shake it.
and small.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
It's not how we treat each other, okay?
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Now you will have 5 minutes to reflect on these questions. What did I enjoy most? What did I enjoy least? Was there a message or moral to the story? Did the story engage my emotions? How did it leave me feeling? What discussions this video is causing me? How did this compare to stories of a similar nature? And do I feel the authors achieve their goals? Problem-solving skills help you to determine the source of the problem and find an effective solution. Although problem-solving is often identified as its own separate skill, there are other related skills that contribute to this ability. Some key problem-solving skills include active listening, analysis, research, creativity, communication, dependability, decision-making, team building. Problem-solving skills are important in every career at every level. As a result, effective problem-solving may also require industry or job-specific technical skills. For example, a registered nurse will need active listening and communication skills when interacting with patients, but will also need effective technical knowledge related to diseases and medications. In many cases, a nurse will need to know when to consult a doctor regarding a patient's medical needs as part of a solution. Now, watch a video where problem solving is explained in detail.
Psychologists study the mind and behavior, and one topic that's interested them for nearly 100 years is problem solving. By looking at 3 problems psychologists have studied extensively, we can get a little insight into how psychology sheds light on the mind. Again and again, psychologists have found that solving certain puzzles requires seeing things differently. In the candle problem, we're given some thumbtacks, a candle, and a box of matches. Don't try this at home without an adult present. The goal state is to attach the candle to a wall in such a way that we can light the candle without burning the house down. Again, don't try this at home. The 9-dot problem was published as a puzzle in the early 1900s, and it seems to have been first studied by the American psychologist Norman Maier in an article he published in 1930. The 9-dot problem runs as follows. Given 9 dots in 3 rows of 3, connect all the dots, drawing through them, using only 4 straight lines. The 3-glass problem involves 3 glasses, an 8-ounce glass, a 5-ounce glass, and a 3-ounce glass. We need to make 2 servings of exactly 4 ounces each without measuring and without just eyeballing or guessing. Most people start trying to solve problems using trial and error. This is seldom successful, but it does help you to explore what's called the problem space. The candle problem was the subject of a study by Gestalt psychologist Carl Duncker. In this case, the candle is very small, but a bigger candle wouldn't really help. The wax of the candle isn't strong enough to melt it and hold it to the wall. With the 9-dot problem, we can start exploring through trial and error. Making 4 lines, can we run through all the dots? It's easy enough to draw 4 lines, but they don't run through all the dots. We can explore the 3-glass problem in a sort of undirected way. If we pour liquid from the 8-ounce glass into the 5-ounce glass, then we have 3 ounces in one glass and 5 ounces in another. We can pour the 5 ounces back into the 8-ounce glass and the 3 ounces into the 5-ounce glass. But we basically just keep rearranging 5 and 3 ounces in the various glasses. We don't have any way of getting to 4 ounces. The solution comes when we realize that the matchbox can be used to make a kind of shelf to hold up the candle. That is, it's not just a box, it's possibly something else. The inability to see the matchbox as a possible solution was what Duncker called functional fixedness, seeing an object as only performing one function and not possibly doing something new. Duncker gave his subjects a box of tacks. We're using the box of matches instead. When Duncker presented his research subjects with an empty box and the contents separately, they were twice as likely to be able to solve the problem. Researchers at Stanford found that solving the problem on paper, about 23% of students were able to solve the problem. When the phrase box of matches was underlined, or even just the word box, the success rate rose to 55% for those who had the phrase box of matches underlined, and 47% for those who had the word box underlined. The solution comes when we see things in a new way, from a new perspective or angle. One hint psychologists sometimes give test subjects with a 9-dot problem is that it's possible to go outside the square represented by the 9 dots. If we draw back a bit, we get a different view of the problem space. Psychologists still debate today why the 9-dot problem is difficult. Some problems are difficult because it's almost impossible to list all the possible solutions or pathways. The 9-dot problem is not this way. We can explore the problem space by seeing how few lines we can draw that pass through all the dots, not worrying about making one connected line right now. If we do this, there are at least 2 good ways to use 3 lines to cut through all the dots, and using diagonal lines we can do it in 4. If we look at this combination of lines, we can realize that 4 of them will connect outside the space of the 9 dots and give us our solution. As with the candle problem, seeing the problem a certain way prevents us from seeing the solution. One problem in our trial and error approach to the 3-glass problem was we were only thinking about what was in the glasses, not what wasn't in the glasses. If we keep track not only of how much is in the glass, but how much extra space is in the glass, then we can use that extra space to measure and remove quantities from the other glasses. If we pour 5 ounces out of the 8-ounce glass, then we have 3 ounces and 5 ounces. And if we pour liquid from the 5-ounce glass into the 3-ounce glass, then we end up with 2 ounces left in the 5-ounce glass. Combining the 3 ounces in the large glass and the small glass gives us 6 ounces in one glass and 2 ounces in another, which we can rearrange. Now we have 1 ounce of empty space in the smallest glass, which means if we measure 5 ounces into the middle glass and pour out some into the 3-ounce glass, we're left with 4 ounces. What's left in the other 2 glasses can be combined and must, of course, be 4 ounces. So what does psychology have to tell us about problem solving? Clearly, hints are helpful. It's also cheering to know that by combining elements of solutions that don't work, we can sometimes find a solution that does work. We think inside a frame or box. Indeed, the catchphrase, thinking outside the box, seems to have come from the 9-dot problem. In some cases, we literally need to see what's not there, empty space as a positive, not just as something to be ignored. Perhaps the most important takeaway is perspective. When we look, we often don't see that we're seeing things a certain way. Understanding how seeing is always a specific way of seeing can get us one step closer to that moment of illumination which takes us out of darkness.
Collaboration entails working with someone else in order to create or produce something. Successful collaboration includes a willingness to find solutions to problems, Recognizing collaborators' strengths and weaknesses, taking responsibility for mistakes, giving credit to others for contribution, actively listening to other team members' concerns. Using collaboration skills within a team may include keeping communication open and never withholding information necessary to carry out tasks, reaching a consensus about goals and methods for completing projects or tasks, offering recognition of the contributions of others on your team, giving credit where credit is due, identifying obstacles and addressing problems cooperatively as they occur, placing group goals above personal satisfaction and/or recognition, especially if you're the leader, apologizing for missteps and forgiving others for mistakes, holding a grudge or sabotaging the efforts of other team members destroys collaboration. Now you will have 3 minutes to think and to remember which skills fall under collaboration term. Time's up. So, making a summary, for successful collaboration, you need skilled communication, emotional intelligence, and respect for diversity. Here is a closer look at each of these types of collaboration skills. Communication skills. Getting your point across can be a challenge. Within a team, you can't be afraid to share your perspective, but you also can't impose your viewpoint on everyone else. These communication skills are essential collaboration skills. It's It's active listening, which goes beyond hearing the words your colleagues are saying. It means listening without judgment and ensuring you understand the meaning behind what they say. If you don't understand, ask for clarification and take the time to summarize what was said before moving on. Written communication. A lot of collaboration happens in writing, especially if you are working remotely. We tend to rely on nonverbal cues to convey meaning, so it's especially important to be mindful of how messages might be received when communicating in writing. Verbal communication. What you say in a team environment is key, but how you say it is just as important. Sharing your perspective succinctly and respectfully disagreeing are essential aspects of verbal communication. Nonverbal communication, like body language and tone, impacts your verbal communication. The same words delivered in two different ways can convey two different meanings to those who are listening. Consider both what are you saying and how you are saying it when working closely with colleagues. Emotional intelligence is one of the most sought after soft skills in the workplace. Emotional intelligence is the ability to identify and manage your emotions, recognize emotions in others, and react appropriately, and apply your emotions to tasks. When a team member is moody and snaps at other team member, those with emotional intelligence can determine that the irritability could be evidence of the moody member's need for rest or assistance. Even issues such as perceived laziness or stubbornness are seen by those with emotional intelligence as symptoms of a larger issue that everyone can work together to address. Some traits to cultivate to increase your emotional intelligence include resilience, not being offended easily, not taking criticism personally, being able to recognize and detach from strong emotions when needed, curiosity, empathy, compassion, and conflict resolution. Respect for diversity. In our global economy, you may be working with colleagues from other countries and cultures. To be successful, it's essential to reflect on any implicit biases you may hold so you can work respectfully with your colleagues. You should also call attention to behaviors or decisions that could be subtle forms of discrimination. For example, if a minority colleague is considering being talked over or ignored during meetings, you might make a deliberate effort to bring the conversation back to that colleague's ideas. Respect for diversity in a collaborative environment includes open communication, sensitivity to ethnic and religious backgrounds, building and managing expectations, facilitating group discussions, agreeing on roles that capitalize on individual strengths, building consensus, eliciting viewpoints from all team members. Now, let's discuss what we have learned so far. 3 main skills for successful learning are critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and collaboration skills. Being able to think for yourself is a key skill at a time where the concept of career and the workplace is changing. Critical thinking is clearly self-directed and self-disciplined, so you will need to be able to think for yourself in a realistic and meaningful way. Problem-solving skills help you to determine the source of a problem and find an effective solution. For successful collaboration, you need skilled communication, emotional intelligence, and respect for diversity.